have you seen anything you might describe as paranormal occur during your training?
I believe the ninja could technically turn invisible.
Okay.
So you're saying being someone who would both have the training, the experience, but then also a target and something to go after.
Hatsumi would swing all the way to the ground. So like if you just moved a little bit and you still got hit on like the hip or whatever, you fail.
Welcome to Into the Unknown with Mike and John, Season 4, Episode 1. Each.
Yeah, Japanese for one.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. I was going to say, that sounded like that's what you said.
Yes.
Each to his own?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome to Season 4, John.
Season 4, or in Japanese, she. And how appropriate, because she is a homonym for death as well as for. And today we have a deadly guest, don't we?
Oh, yeah. Well, in our opener, we explore a new mystery is what's happening with a special guest from our high school days. And he just happens to be a ninja.
A ninja.
That's right. Today, folks, we explore ninja powers.
Mysterious ninja powers.
I'm Mike Duber.
And I'm John Fitzpatrick.
All right, John. Now, this is right up your alley. Why don't you set us up?
Okay, so today we have Joe Offutt, who, as you said, is a high school classmate of ours. And he is the owner and head instructor at Tristar Mt, Airy, where they teach what's technically the art Bujinkan Budo Taijutsu, but it is the modern expression of ninjutsu. It has ties back to ninjutsu as it was practiced in the ancient past. And they wear the black uniforms. And they practice with all the different weapons and tools.
Yeah.
And, he's had a lot of ninja adventures over the years. So I thought we should have him in and, sort of explore where this traditional martial art with a modern expression sort of meets that paranormal boundary, because there's a lot of mythology around the ninja.
Yeah, because when originally you brought this up, I was thinking, okay, I'm open to any topic really, but then when you put it that way, there really are some mysteries.
Yeah, like we're going to talk about his the 5th degree black belt test, what's called the Godan test.
Oh my gosh!
Which tests his ability to sense Sakki or the
energy,
the intent to commit harm or kill somebody. Sakki.
So you mean pick up intent from the other person?
That is
how
the theory.
would that happen, John?
Well, if you're going, are you? Don't
listen. Let's not spoil it.
Let's not spoil it. Let's let the person who actually went through the test discuss it. And I believe since we are recording these things a little bit out of order, I believe you do put me on the spot and ask me some questions about how that met. So let's let that discussion serve itself.
You know me. I mean, I'm not totally aggressive, but I do like to ask those probing questions. Anyway, enough of us. Let's get to this interview. We were really lucky to have Joe. We're so glad that we were able to record with him. So, that was a good one, John. All right, so without any further ado, let's head over to our interview, shall we? Hey, gang, we're in the studio today, and we've got a special guest. So joining us is Joe Offutt. Now, Joe is a friend from school.
He's a classmate. People are going to wonder about us. That we just keep
St.
bringing
Joe guy.
St. Joe people.
I think we could go through the whole class.
Oh boy.
It'd be great.
Well, we probably could in some way.
I know. Well, they all have a story to tell.
I do have other people on the backlog that have different, aspects of the paranormal that we could quiz them on. But Joe's an interesting one.
Joe is super interesting. And Joe, welcome. First of all, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule.
Not a problem.
I know you've already had a day.
Yeah.
So I was going to introduce you, but I think let's have you tell us your title, your role, and that's going to start giving us an idea of why we want to talk to Joe today.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So why are you here, Joe?
Well,
what are you?
I was asked to be here because I study ninjutsu.
You're a ninja?
I am I guess you could call me a ninja, sure. I study the art of the ninja. I've been doing that for 20 years. I own a dojo in Mount Airy, Maryland called Tristar Martial Arts Mount Airy, and I'm the chief instructor there. I officially have a title in the Bujinkan, which is an organization that kind of governs ninjutsu, and I have a title of Shidoshi, which means I'm above a 5th degree black belt. And so that's pretty much it.
So I have some knowledge of this coming in. I understand your reluctance to share more, and you've always been a very humble guy. But my understanding is you're a 9th degree black belt, and by most standards, passing that 5th degree puts you into the ranks of masters of ninjutsu. But I know that's a word that has a lot of baggage with it. But and we'll talk about why that's the sort of road mark, or as we go through this. But I thought we'd talk a little bit about you first and get there.
Yeah.
So you gave us your intro, but let's just start with the generic. How did you get interested in martial arts?
Oh man,
what was your first martial arts experience?
Oh geez, when I was a kid, I was a skinny little nothing, and if you were small for your size back in the late 70s, early 80s, you were a target, right, for bullies in the neighborhood or school or whatever. And so I had my fair share of that kind of thing going on. And but I always loved watching martial arts on TV. I was a big fan of, Kung Fu, The Legend Continues.
Kung Fu Theater.
Kung Fu Theater. Yeah, and Bruce Lee movies and Chuck Norris.
All those rest in peace.
Yeah.
Timely name.
It's timely.
It's crazy. So my father, when I was about 9 or 10, asked me if I had an interest in trying martial arts out, like going to an actual dojo and trying that out. And I was like, absolutely, I'd love to. And so I started at a dojo where I learned Tang Sudo.
Which was Chuck Norris's art, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Tang Sudo. Now, so I'm coming in ice cold, so I'm the dumb guy, and I get to ask the dumb guy questions.
You can ask all the dumb guy questions.
Is that the art that you take when you want to be a ninja? Tang Sudo?
No. It's
okay.
We'll get there.
Oh, okay. All right.
Tang Sudo.
Let it. Yes. Please describe the difference here, though.
Tang Sudo is a Korean martial art. It's very similar to Taekwondo.
Okay.
There's a lot of kata in the air performed. We did some weapons kata as well, but a lot of point sparring, flashy kicks. Things like it really focuses on kicks mostly.
Okay.
And then my teacher also taught American freestyle kickboxing.
Oh, okay.
And so
Sport of the future.
He took all of his different martial arts and kind of blended them into his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And we focused on mostly going to tournaments, point sparring, like you see in the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
I did that.
Oh, wow.
I think
really?
I think Cobra Kai is actually based a lot on Tang Sudo, Taekwondo.
Yeah.
In terms of its choreography.
Like a lot of the spin kicks and flashy kicks and things like that come from that kind of thing. And so that's where it started for me. Yeah.
Okay. And now you're a child of the 80s like the other rest of us here.
Because I can tell you, my 80s was flashing through my head.
Yeah.
Black Belt magazine and buying and wearing tabby.
Yeah. So that was my question to Joe was, do you have a first or an early memory of your encountering the ninja back in the 80s? Like you're in Taekwondo, Tang Sudo, you're doing your clicks, and then there's this black clad phantom that appears in the 80s and just hangs there.
I probably knew about the ninja before I even started Taekwondo or not Taekwondo, Tang Sudo. Probably G.I. Joe, I would say.
Okay.
Watching G.I. Joe cartoons, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow.
Okay.
And those were probably my first encounter, along with the 80s boom of all the crazy ninja movies.
Oh,
Enter the Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja, and all that.
So
Shokasuji.
I have to ask them because you just brought him up and opened the door. So I asked a bunch of my martial arts instructor friends, hey, I'm going to interview this ninja. Mm-hmm. Do you have any questions? And the one I got was Shokasugi. Mm-hmm. Was he a fair ambassador for the ninja in Hollywood, or a total disaster that has just set the expectations way too high?
To be honest,
that's not the question that came to my mind. That's okay.
To be honest, yesterday, knowing I was going to come here for this, I looked up to see, all right, I haven't seen any of those movies in so long.
Sure.
I'm going to see if I can get one streamed. So I went online and I looked up Enter the Ninja.
That was the first one. Yeah.
And I saw, and I watched 5 minutes of it. And I was like, oh boy,
this is intolerable.
But I mean, when you're 8 or 9 watching that, so
right.
This is awesome. Throwing stars flying and hitting people in the skull and all this stuff.
Is that the one with the guy at the end on the building top and he had the silver mask, or was that the second one?
That's the second one.
Is it? Okay.
And I which I think is Revenge of the Ninja.
Revenge of the Ninja. Yes. The guy I think is in a white uniform in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think
that's,
or maybe that might be.
I'm not going to correct you.
I can't. I
told you we'd ninja nerd out, but I'm supposed to let you be the ninja nerd.
I mean,
it's been feed you.
I mean, it's been like 45 years probably since I've watched.
I think that's Enter the Ninja where he's in the white uniform.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so I watched about 10 minutes of that, and I'm like, whew, okay.
So that bears no resemblance to what you do.
I mean, there are aspects to it. There's definitely there's some acrobatic type stuff that we teach. I mean, some of the flipping through the air and all that. I mean, you go to gymnastics, I guess, if you want to.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I could do that kind of stuff, but I'm not young anymore. And so, but the rolls and the things that you do to stay safe or to roll and hide or get low or whatever are more or less the things we teach. But some of those movies, they definitely show some pretty cool moves. And
that's what made it great for the movies. I mean, I remember, and I also remember running around the neighborhood with whatever dark
what did
costume
that look like?
I could put on. Well,
because you were telling you earlier.
Yeah, I mean, the for anybody that was friend, if Chris is listening, he'll remember that I had a black jeans and I had a black shirt and I had a legitimate mask that I had and white Nikes. And so at night you'd see these white Nikes running across the lawn and nothing else. But that was so much fun.
It was fun.
I mean, I think I was a ninja for Halloween for 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, right. Never got any candy because no one could ever see me.
That's right.
So the question that came to my mind is, do you mix up your own smoke bombs or do you have them made or shipped in anywhere?
So I'm waiting for this. That's a good question. You're going to be surprised by this answer.
I've actually done some seminars and taught students how to make ninja smoke bombs.
Yeah.
Awesome answer.
Yeah.
I get the sense
we
that
call
you're
them
not
black
bullshitting
eggs. Black eggs.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay. Wow. So you've got alchemy going as well. I love it.
You got it.
I'm intrigued.
There is some alchemy. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, before we go too far down into the smoke bomb realm,
man.
No. That was a good question.
I was trying to just be funny.
You asked that, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna get an answer he doesn't expect. I do want to give listeners who might not be super familiar with this stuff some flavor of what this looks like. So
sure.
Let's start with what is modern ninjutsu, okay, as a sort of topic area. And I want to start with the names because I think you've already mentioned a few. Like there's ninjutsu, but then I think you mentioned Bujinkan.
Yeah.
And then I know there are some names that are preferred within the Bujinkan rather.
Right.
So why don't we talk about just the nomenclature first of all? So what is ninjutsu?
Sure.
And then what's Bujinkan? I'll feed you that
So ninjutsu is a art of the ninja, art of perseverance. So nin is the first syllable of ninja or ninjutsu, and so it means to persevere or one who perseveres, hardship. And so you have to think back to feudal Japan where the ninja were dealing with all kinds of adversity. They sometimes were mostly farmers.
Yeah.
Living on land. They had to pay rent to a daimyo, which was like the lord that owned the land. And the daimyo had his own police force, samurai in most cases. And though some samurai were ninja and some ninja were samurai.
Okay. We'll put a pin in that.
This is fascinating.
We may get to that today, probably not, but you're welcome to come back and we can go through the stuff. Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. And so...
but that's a complicated...
So in ninjutsu covers a wide variety of weaponry, strategy, medicine, deals with unarmed combat. So the unarmed portion is known as Budo Taijutsu. And so you'll hear people refer to ninjutsu as Budo Taijutsu because Masaki Hatsumi, the founder of the Bujinkan, which basically he took 9 martial arts, martial traditions that his teacher Takamatsu, Toshitsugu Takamatsu, taught him. He combined them into one organization, which oversees ninjutsu, people that practice under the Bujinkan, that martial art. And so it could include horsemanship. It could include archery, swordsmanship, stick fighting, water combat, geography, how to use the weather to your advantage, explosives. I mean, so ninjutsu covers a lot of things, most of which are not taught anymore.
Yeah.
Most, yeah.
Or at least it would also taught to most.
Not in our martial art, but you can go places to learn them, right?
Well, but it would matter about context as well, right? Yeah. I mean, you're going to focus on some other things if you're in a hardship near the shore,
right? I mean, it's also
the mountains.
It's also 2026,
Right, true.
And so
that's true.
You know, times have changed, so there's maybe more things you have to learn. I mean, I don't know how to fly a plane, but I guess if I were a true ninja today, I would have skills to do all kinds of skydiving and scuba diving and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But
so sounds more like a way of life.
Yeah.
Very good. Yes.
Nimpo.
So what does a typical class look like in your school?
Yep. So a typical class for us, as far as somebody maybe starting out, would focus more on the self-defense aspects that you might use today: basic striking, basic kicks, blocking, body movement to avoid, getting hit, or when you get pushed, absorbing that energy and moving in a way that you keep your balance, but maybe gain an advantage. How to fall safely, because let's face it, we may never get attacked in real life, but we're probably going to trip and fall at some point. Right. So it's like, well, can I fall and protect myself if that happens? Those kinds of things. And then when our students get to the black belt level, we start teaching them some of the more basic weapons, the 3-foot staff, which is known as a hanbo, shuriken or throwing stars. Yeah. We teach knife skills, and kasari fundo, which is a weighted chain. So it's a chain. It's about 21 inches long, and it's got weights on either end that are good for striking.
Okay.
So,
and is that am I thinking of the right one that have a kami on the end? Is that
so that's kasari gama,
okay.
Right? So you can that has a hooked blade on one end, or like a scythe almost, with a long chain or rope with like a weight on the end.
Yeah.
We have a weapon called a Kyoketsu Shoge, which is similar to that. It's like a dagger with a hooked blade, as well as like an iron ring. So these are weapons that the ninja. So back in feudal Japan, if you were a samurai, you could own a long sword and a short sword. If you weren't a samurai, you could not own a long sword. You could own a kodachi, which is a short sword. That was kind of expected that you might carry one. But only the samurai could carry a long sword and a short sword. If I'm a ninja and I got to protect myself against a samurai coming in to kill me and my family, maybe I make a weapon.
Right.
So I grab things around the farm, things that a ring from an ox cart, a rope. Maybe I put, a digging tool on the end for stabbing, right? And so I make a makeshift weapon. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like what the Kyoketsu shoge was.
So it's like hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. I can take parts of things and quickly put them together, and I have a weapon. It gives me distance because I don't want to get anywhere close to anybody with any kind of skill. Like ninja were taught to escape, not so much to fight. They focus more on getting out, doing something quick and leaving.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. I think that's a pretty good image of the art. We can circle back if some other stuff comes up, but I kind of want to move through this a little bit. You continue to learn and train, and I know you travel to Japan, but you have a stateside mentor, and I have some questions about some things he's done with you for later.
Yeah.
But I thought this might be an opportune time to introduce him. So can you tell us a little bit about your stateside mentor?
Yeah. So years ago, when my teachers decided they were going to retire and move, I really needed to find a new teacher, and so with me teaching martial arts every night, it was hard to find anybody local, and I can't really leave and not teach my classes. So I started looking online and to see, who I could reach out to that had been to Japan a lot, and came across this guy named Mark Roemke, and he's from Santa Cruz, California. He's a 15th degree black belt in our martial art, which that's the highest rank you can be. For someone that's not born in Japan and the Grand Master, right? But he's been to Japan and trained with the founder of the Bujinkan, Masaki Hatsumi. He's been there over 30 times in the past 35 years. And so, he's... matter of fact, I was looking at his website, which is Ninja Training TV, and he ended up...
Go ahead and plug it.
Yeah.
All right.
And he ended up...
I think we have it in our show notes because I was being nice to him too.
I put my information in to get more information. It was like on a Black Friday. I was off from work, and my phone rings, and it's him. And so we talked for a couple hours, and
Instant connection?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So I don't think that's outside of the realm here about some of the... I think we're going to talk about how connections are made in this art in very different ways. I know you've been to Japan several times. You've been to some stateside taikais, or what amounts to a ninja convention,
right? A
big seminar, but the students come from all over.
No.
So are there particular Japanese instructors that you're connecting with? And in all of this, what makes you gravitate towards one instructor versus another?
Yeah, that's a good question. So,
See, that's not a dumb question. I'm just teasing.
That's okay.
You said you'd ask the dumb questions.
I've got one waiting to go.
Yeah.
Got a dumb one locked and loaded.
Okay.
So I've been fortunate enough to go to Japan, and I've trained with about 3 out of the 8 new grandmasters. So Masaki Hatsumi about 5 years ago decided to retire, and he took the 9 family traditions that he inherited as grandmaster, and then he split them back out. And so I've gotten to train with Noguchi Sensei, who is the grandmaster of Koto-Ryu, Kopo-Jitsu. And then also Nagato Sensei, he is the grandmaster of Shinden Fudo-Ryu. And then I've trained with Furuta Sensei, and he is the grandmaster of Kumogakure-Ryu.
Oh, okay.
And
did you learn Kumogakure-Ryu from him? Or
did
he show you techniques from that?
So some of the traditions have... You can go and find the kata and the techniques that are taught in those.
Right.
Kumogakure-Ryu, not so much.
Right.
Just sort of.
So
I think it's an oral tradition kind of thing.
Yeah, it's more of an oral tradition. So 3 out of the 9 traditions that are taught are ninjutsu traditions, and 6 are samurai. The samurai ones are easy to find information and techniques about because they weren't hidden.
And they're well documented. Those are the ones nobody really disputes. They may talk about different family branches, but when people...
And they have a lineage where you could look up these people and say, oh, they had military, battles here and roles here and all that. But ninjutsu is more like are these names of actual people, or are they, also known as someone else?
Are they legends or myths, right?
Yeah. But so my Godan test, I did that under Noguchi Sensei.
Okay. I've got questions for that later.
I love his energy. Well, you were asking who I'm connected to.
Yeah.
So
How'd you connect?
I would say Noguchi is probably, I have a really good connection with him. We share some similar things that have happened to us in the past.
Okay.
We can talk about that later.
Okay. Fair.
And then Nagato Sensei, loved his class. Matter of fact, I've been fortunate enough, last time I was in Japan, both their classes are about 2 hours long. And when I walked into the dojo on my first day, Noguchi Sensei said, "Josephu, be my uke."
Oh.
And so I was his uke for 2 hours.
A mixed honor there.
Is that punching bag?
Yes.
Yeah. You're their attacker that they get to demonstrate the techniques on.
Nice.
And then the very next day,
what an honor.
Yeah. It is an honor.
It is. Like, you get excited when your instructor says, "Here, I want to come up here and let me punch you."
I'll be bruised in your name.
It's an honor. It's painful, but it's an honor.
Yeah.
And then the very next day, Nagato, same thing. Same thing.
Oh, wow.
For 2 hours. So I was like, where's an ice bath? But yeah, it was great. It was really good. So I think out of everybody so far in Japan, those two are definitely
cool
people that I connect to.
Okay. So with that in mind, I got a 2-part question. One is, do you really consider yourself to be a ninja? And either way, who would you consider to be a ninja? And why?
Yeah, I would not consider myself to be a ninja. I mean, to do that, I think I would have to take all the skill sets that were considered what ninja did and get very good at all of them. And I definitely don't. Like, my focus is mostly on the combat-oriented skills, like unarmed combat and weapon skills, with a little bit of survival stuff. But as far as, mapping out strategies to go into battle and all, I mean, I suppose if I were in the military, so though I don't consider myself a ninja, I guess today I would consider maybe like a CIA operative to be a ninja, or somebody on the special teams in the military to be more of a ninja than, anybody that trains in just the art of ninjutsu.
So you're saying being someone who would both have the training, the experience, but then also a target and something to go after.
And real world
experience.
Against. Yeah, real world experience.
Yeah.
I think, like, if you're not actually going out and using this stuff in the real world, not in a dojo, but like in the real world, then I would say, you're studying some of the things that they used. But if you're not actually using it, I would say you're not a ninja.
Yeah.
So something of an aspirational
as much as I would
term.
like to call myself a ninja, and sometimes do joking around, right?
Of course.
When you train in ninjutsu, like, oh yeah, I'm a ninja. But not really.
All right, that's as gotcha a question as I have for you, really. But yeah, you did well with that.
Well, either answer I would accept.
Yeah.
Because I would say, that does it take having a target to have eliminated for you to be a ninja? I'll give you the title. In my mind, you're a ninja, Joe.
I mean, and then you can think of targets in different ways. Like, are you talking about, a target that you got to take out or assassinate? Or are you talking about a target that you need to go in and build a relationship with just to gain advantage in some area of life? It's similar but different.
Yeah, the letter you need to steal, it can be a target as well. Totally understand. Yeah. But the practice and application of it, that's an interesting question, though.
I mean,
certainly a good question, John.
That was a good question.
I have used my ninjutsu skills in the real world, but not to do anything shady, right? But as far as awareness and as far as when I go to a restaurant where I choose to sit, it's been impacted with my training and things like that. What's close to me that I could pick up, and if you two jumped over this table right now, what could I grab to defend myself?
Right.
Like,
you're not feeling threatened, are you?
Not at all.
Okay,
not
good.
At all.
I'm
very.
I don't want to give off an aggressive vibes.
No,
But
sometimes I can be. Pen you've got in your hand there.
It's getting closer.
He's very dangerous. Don't let him fool you.
Yeah, I'm going to tell a bad joke, and it'll be all over for you.
Right.
Okay.
Well, to me, I was mentioning before, and maybe it sounds like a way of a philosophy.
Yeah.
To me.
Definitely.
It's like stoicism without the violence.
Yeah. So back then, I guess Nimpo would be the term for like it incorporates your spiritual beliefs as well as your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And what you've been taught and how to behave and how to, set a table for dinner and how to interact with people and how to keep an eye out for certain things like, to keep your family safe. Yeah.
Or sensing intention, which is a setup. For
it's a setup. That's a pin for later today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway. Some other questions then. So let's start moving towards that. There's a lot of folklore built up around the ninja, that they could turn invisible, become as silent as a whisper, talk to animals. In fact, I think they could even shapeshift into certain animals. Frogs come to mind for some weird reason, not turtles, and foretell the future. So on a scale of 1, you're a total skeptic, to 10, you're a true believer in everything.
This is sort of a gotcha question.
Yeah, not really. What? Because it'd be gotcha if I said, never mind, I'm not going to do that. All right, what is your level of belief in paranormal phenomena? Just generally, before we get back to the ninja.
I would probably say 7.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good answer.
I would say 7 because
I love that answer.
I've experienced some things that are hard to explain.
Okay.
But I know what I felt and saw.
I thought so.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm over here
yeah.
beside myself with giddiness, Joe, because that's
don't go far off track.
I'm not.
I know
I'm
you're
not.
dying
I'm going to
to
shut up in a
ask,
second.
and I want
I'm
to
just
know,
telling
too.
Joe that I really think that's cool because I was wondering the same thing. And I'll leave it there, John. But go ahead. I just wanted to let him know that
let me work through the ninja parts of this. But we at the end in the cool down fun questions, we're going to talk about just general stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So which fantastic ninja powers do you believe have some basis in truth?
Okay, so I feel like some of their powers back then, with the lack of technology back then and knowing what we know now, I believe the ninja could technically turn invisible.
Okay.
That could be whether they use some kind of blinding powder into the enemy's eyes, and then by the time the enemy could clear their vision, they were gone. Or maybe the ninja threw blinding powder in their eyes, dove into a bush, a crow flies out.
Yeah.
And, the ninja turned into a crow.
Yeah.
And back then, people were very superstitious about all sorts of things. But the ninja were never like, no, I can't do that. They'd be like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, of course I can.
And it's like, well, could you though?
That's just smart.
Well, have you seen anything you might describe as paranormal occur during your training?
So we sometimes do training with our eyes closed.
Okay.
And so we'll work on sensing an attack and moving before we get hit with our eyes closed. And I mean, I've been attacked and moved just in the right amount of time. According to my attacker, they're like, oh, I thought I was going to hit you. And next thing I know, you were not there.
Yeah.
And I've sparred somebody who was a 15th degree black belt quite a while ago. And he seemed to be able to read my mind. He was definitely 8 steps ahead of where I was, and he kind of knew what was coming next before I even knew what I was going to do next. So that was pretty wild. Yeah.
That is exactly what I had in mind. I said, I was telling John earlier before you got here, I said, I feel like he after both training with people and training others, that you are bound to have run across someone, either the teacher or the student, who was just seemed to be ahead by a couple of seconds, or I mean, like a microsecond. And that, I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And if you may or may not have listened to certain episodes of this, but if you run across some, there are some episodes where we cover that minds are connected, right? That we live in a connected universe where, it's like telepathy is an actual skill that you can develop, and nothing short of martial art, right, is a part of that, right? Yeah. Which is training your mind and focusing, sensing the intent.
Right.
It's almost a form of, the art itself is a form of meditation, which sharpens that skill. Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to drag it too far off.
No, I'm letting you go. I'm modifying my questions on the fly over here based on some of these answers in your interaction.
Another supernatural occurrence is being moved without anybody touching you. And so
I was just okay. Let me move. Okay. Could have been in that, because I just want to walk through some of that again for our listeners, because I had a whole section here about Kyusho, pressure points, no touch stuff. Because all that's connected, and I feel like as a student progresses, this is one of those things they're going to encounter first. That first there's that idea of, here's a Kyusho. So can you talk about what Kyusho is and why they get mixed up with pressure points, maybe a little bit to start?
Sure.
And then we can talk about what Kyusho really are.
Yep. So Kyusho are pretty commonly known as like nerve centers in the body that are easily accessible with a strike or a grab that could trigger a reflex response in a person. Mostly for combat situations, a pain response. But you could also look at it as just to off-balance someone, right? So one of our traditions is called Gyokoru Koshi Jitsu. And Koshi Jitsu basically means like focusing on weak points. So human beings have, if you've ever hit your funny bone on anything, and you get that, electric tingle up the arm and into your fingers. We teach students to hit people there.
Well, why not? That is very logical, it semes to me.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So there's different parts of the body. Now, some people are not super sensitive to that stuff. So, because I've done that to people before, like, I didn't really feel it. And it's like, So people can be very flexible, right? So they can bend more than other people. Some people aren't as sensitive to the nerve type striking things. But so Kyusho are kind of known as weak spots.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. But so when I went through this kind of training, that was sort of that surface level idea that if you hit somebody there it tingles, but as you progress, you start to learn that they're more like, as you said, weak spots. Like if I stand in a certain way, there are certain spots that you can hit to disrupt my balance, disrupt my structure.
Absolutely.
In various ways. So there's more to it than just the hitting the tingle type stuff. But that sort of suggests that there are other physiological responses going on, which is why this pressure point fighting in general gets sort of moved into something like a no-touch knockout. Do you believe in a no-touch knockout?
I do not.
You do not? Okay.
I don't believe in a no-touch. Now, I've knocked someone down before without touching them, but not knocked them out.
Not knocked them. But you know what I'm talking about. Like you've seen the videos online of the people doing that kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a believer.
Okay, so the death touch is definitely out. See? Okay.
I mean, a death touch, you could look at that in a lot of ways. Like, all right, if I hit somebody hard enough somewhere, could it kill them with one touch? Yes. I mean, people get hit. some people hit their head on a rock and die.
Yeah.
Right?
Are we talking about like a temple hit,
Well,
or different places,
it's
or
more of a
chest?
style of hitting to a certain nerve center that could trigger the heart failure or brain death or something like that. But I mean, I don't know if I buy into that. A really good hammer fist to the chest, or if you're on the ground already and stomping on somebody. Yeah. I mean, in that case, sure, but that's not really exactly.
It's not the same as
Dim Mak,
right?
You know,
right? The image from like Kill Bill, where she hits a series of pressure points, and he's going to take
like
3 steps and die.
Kung Fu Panda,
right?
You know?
What was that? The shishi.
The whooshy finger.
Whooshy finger. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. All right. All right.
You had said that you knocked someone down without touching.
Oh
them.
yeah.
Is that a matter of like like you lunged and you moved them sort of by leading them and like shaping an intent, putting it at them. Yeah. You've not touched them, but they topple themselves over. What are we talking about?
Basically, yeah. So like maybe they're in a position, and without giving away what you're going to do is like startle them, like jump at them, yell loud, and maybe they trip over their foot or whatever, and then they lose their own balance because their flinch response was so big that they took themselves off balance.
So it's really the art part. The art part of it is the knowledge of the way the human body and the brain react to stimulus, and then using that against them.
I would say that is a really good description of what any good martial artist is. They train in it so long that they know exactly what the person's going to do if they move this way or that way. And they know what options they have at the distance they're at,
Do you remember the Koch twins?
I do.
Yeah, I do. They were Aikido trainers. Yeah. And they elevated quite high through that art. But they were taking that in school, and they were showing us different things here and there. And I was like, well, what? And I said, it doesn't seem like a lot of strikes or like karate, like karate, and you do the karate chop, right? And he's like, no. This is about using your own momentum against you. And that sounds like what you just described, right? The idea that, I know when he's in this position, if I lunge at him right now, he's going to fall over because he is just going to react and just crumple.
Yeah, and that's, pretty much you're using their reaction against them. Yeah. You're using their energy against them, which I think is important in real life self-defense, because nobody is going to wait outside a powerlifting class and say, I'm going to mug one of these powerlifters, right? But it's going to be more like, I'm looking for an easy target.
Right.
And so like if you can't use their power to beat them, then you don't have much of a chance. You're not going to be strong enough, right?
Right.
So that's why it's important. And that's why I think it's an art. I think, when you get older at something, like in sports, you get older in something, you can't compete anymore. Like the younger people have the advantage, right? But in this martial art, I've seen people 84 years old do things that blow your mind, and you're like, they barely moved. But yeah, it's all the experience and the wisdom, and I know where I had to be at that time to make this work. And so,
that's amazing. Well, and with the young, just it reminded me very quickly of the kids that are professional video game players, like the real-time strategy games, and they said they have to retire at the age of 20 because their reflexes are down to microseconds. And they can't compete with the younger by 2 years, right? These the responses that they have are measured in microseconds, and it sounds very similar. Yeah. No, it is effectively the same thing, right?
Yeah.
What beeped?
I don't know. But it wasn't just me. You heard that too.
I did.
Okay. Well,
or. I don't know. It's a shared paranormal experience. I don't know what that was.
I guess. All right. So, all right. As I said, we're kind of working our way through the pressure points, Q show, that concept of, okay. be something that somebody might experience early, but eventually they go on, they earn their black belt. That's a rite of passage. And what we say in English, first degree black belt, isn't really quite the meaning. The Japanese word is shodan, which my understanding is beginner grade.
Beginner level. Yeah.
So they start over again, and they, in a sense, and they start working through different material, and eventually they get to Godan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now we're there.
We got the test.
Yeah. I mean, so
we got to build it up like an '80s movie, man.
That's sort of why, but that's why first degree black belt's often likened to graduating high school, and Godan's like graduating college or beginning graduate study. So can you explain what Godan is, and then we'll talk about what's the test.
So Godan is the equivalent of a 5th level. Go is 5 and Dan's level, so 5th degree black belt. It's really the only official test given in the Bujinkan that is across the board for anybody in the Bujinkan. Before that, your teacher might come up with their own criteria for 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th degree. But the 5th degree, or the Godan test, is the pinnacle test for, and really the only official test in the Bujinkan. And for that test, you kneel down in what's a posture called seiza, and you face away from the person giving the test, which today has to either be like one of the high-level Dai Shihan, one of the new Soke, or somebody that Hatsumi Sensei has appointed. They have to be a 5th degree black belt, and there's very few of them that can give it, because so you kneel down in front of them, facing away from them with your eyes closed. And they basically swing a sword down at your head, and you have to sense the right time to move.
Yeah.
And if you're too late, now they use a bamboo shinai, which is a sword now, because if it was a real sword, you got real problems.
Yeah.
People dying and, all that stuff. But it has less to do with avoiding the sword swing and more to do with the connection that you're making with the person who's doing the sword swing. So it's really a test for both people. It's a test for the person giving the test.
Right, which is why so few can give it. Right.
Yeah, because it takes you have to try to, if you've ever felt a stranger staring at you without looking at them, and you looked over and they were staring at you, it's similar to that. Like, you have to be able to transmit the energy to the person kneeling in front of you at the right moment and say, like, now I'm going to kill you.
So let me stop you there, just because I want to introduce the concept of Sakki.
Yep.
Can you describe what that is and why it's important to this connection?
So Sakki is a killing intent. So think of, a serial killer is, trying to sneak up on you. And before they lunge the knife into you, like, you just felt this evil presence, and your awareness went on high alert. And right before the attack, you like sensed it and turned and, were able to defend yourself. Or you got to your car quickly and you left before they ever made their presence. So,
there are stories across all kinds of domains just like that. People have they don't get on airplanes because they have a certain gut feeling. They won't go down an alleyway because they just feel like something's going to happen. They won't go across a sunny, grassy field because something's going to happen and a plane crashes down. Or, we'll just these sixth sense.
I believe there are some stories, and you certainly can correct me if I'm totally off base, but I believe there are some stories of Hatsumi promoting people who had real combat experience, maybe not to Godan, but giving them black belts, because he's like, you've been there, seen the elephant, done the thing, felt the intent.
Speaking of combat, that happened all the time in as stories out of World War II. The combat antenna of somebody that's like something's something's there. I can't tell what it is, but don't everybody get down,
I mean, if you're driving to work and you're like, did I leave the stove on?
Yeah.
And I think I left the stove on, and you turn around and you come home and the stove's on. Like, oh, that was it, right?
Yeah.
But there was a story that Nagato shared at his Taikai in Ohio back in 2021 where there was an Arizona Daikomyosai, which is basically a big training gathering.
Ninja convention.
Yeah, ninja convention, right? When Masaki Hatsumi used to come over from Japan, and he had given the Godan test to a few people, and one of the guys failed. And then after the Godan testing was done that morning, they broke for lunch and they were having a barbecue or something. And this guy, the guy that failed the Godan test, is walking with his cafeteria tray in front of him. And Hatsumi is watching him, and the guy stops. And Masaki Hatsumi is watching him. And the guy changes direction and walks a different way. And Masaki Hatsumi basically stood up and said, "Pass." And they're like, "What?
What did the guy avoid?"
There was a rattlesnake on
awesome.
the path in front of him, but because of his tray, he couldn't see it.
But he
watched the guy stop, and he's like watching the whole thing, and he's like, "Pass."
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
Because it's the same
It's
sense, right? It's in a more real situation, right?
So
wow, that's interesting. It's the actual intent as opposed to what is a manufactured intent. I mean, the test itself, the provider of the sword swing has to be trained because he has to invent the actual feeling of intent.
You got it.
To pick up on. So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
How long had you been training before you sat for the test?
So I started training in the Bujinkan 20 years ago. I tested, when was that? I want to say I tested about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And so 15 years, which is kind of late, honestly, in the game in the Bujinkan, but because
you had some
my
extenuating
teachers had
circumstances.
stopped teaching and all this. So, yeah. So actually, the day that I took the Godan test, it was a surprise to me. Most people know that they're going to sit for the Godan test. Mark Roemke comes up to me. They made an announcement. Noguchi will be doing Godan testing after lunch. And so we were going to break for lunch. And then Mark Roemke, maybe right before the Godan test, 5 minutes before, he taps me on the shoulder, goes, "Are you ready?" And I'm like, "For what? Lunch?" And he is like, "No, you're going to sit for the Godan." I was like, "Nope." But I did. So,
wow.
Yeah, that was an experience.
All right. Yeah. Well, tell us about the experience.
Yeah. So
that's why we invited you.
I'm thinking like not knowing is better. Like the raw reaction is probably a better position. You you psych yourself up.
Yeah, you might build your brain starts to fill with all kinds of things like, well, what can I do to get ready?
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know if there are certain things you can do, I guess, to prepare. But when I went up there, I think I was the third person to get tested, and we were on a really short stage. And supposedly, like, you're supposed to. The way it used to go, you'd get swung at and you'd have to roll. You roll out of the way. We were on a really short stage, and Noguchi said, "Nobody roll.
Okay.
You're going to fall off the stage."
By the way, the video I watched this morning, the guys were rolling. So that rings true. I had to watch something just to get some kind of
there will be
sense of
video in the show notes.
that was one.
Nagato said that when he tested the sword, Hatsumi would swing all the way to the ground. So like if you just moved a little bit and you still got hit on like the hip or whatever, you failed. But nowadays it's a little less intense. They obviously don't want to injure people in the Godan test, and a lot of Bujinkan practitioners are getting older. So basically you have to move your head at the right time and kind of look back to avoid.
Like you slip a punch.
Yeah, basically. And so when I took mine, I was kneeling up there, and I was trying to settle, which is hard when you have 200 some people watching, and the grandmaster behind you with a sword. And so the first couple times he kind of put the sword on my head to prepare me, just to say all right, get ready. And as he was bringing it up, I was nervous, and I flinched, and I was like, oh man, that stinks. I look like an idiot. And so then it happened again. I flinched again. I was like, I'm like, this is not going well. What am I doing here? And so then Noguchi, and I didn't see this at the time, but it's pretty trippy now to watch it back and think about it. He put the bamboo shinai on my head, and he spoke in Japanese, and Sean Askew, the host, was interpreting, and he said, Noguchi says, relax, don't think, don't move, he'll move you. All right, don't think of anything. And then Noguchi was behind me with the sword resting on my head, and he was doing this kind of motion with his hand that looked like he was pouring something onto my shoulders. And when he was doing that, I didn't realize this, but when he did that, I just kind of gave up. I was I flinched twice. I feel like an idiot. Just get me off the stage. I quit. I don't care. I just want to be over. I'm fine. Hit me. Yeah. It's done. And then I just kind of gave up. My body went from this very rigid position to this very defeated, relaxed, resigned to failure type of a thing. Man. And then I felt like I got pushed from behind. And he goes, pass. And I was like, what the hell just happened? Wow.
Yeah.
And so it was almost
cool.
a lesson, and I think to how the samurai have the acceptance of a beautiful death.
Yeah. You have that acceptance of failure.
Well, right. You can't go into battle and give it your all if in the back of your mind you're thinking, I could die.
Right. Yes.
I'm nervous about dying. So if you're nervous about dying, you can't give it your all.
You can't worry about the consequences.
So you can't worry about the consequences, and that kind of equate to just give up. And I tell my students all the time now, this is not about winning. Just be okay with losing.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty wild.
Wow.
That is an amazing story, Joe.
You've given me the segue to talk about your students, but I have to ask, do you feel like, you said there was emotion. Do you feel like it was somehow leeching energy off of you? Trying to help you?
Yeah. I mean, I think he was trying to get me to just settle and relax, because he felt like maybe I was tense.
But this is
and he needed me to relax, and there's a concept in our martial art called Mushin.
No mind.
No mind. And so, the kids, like the kid says to Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai, think about sword, think about that person, think about too much think, no mind, don't think. And so I was like, maybe he was trying to get me to stop thinking and just.
My interpretation is whether he moved you or you moved yourself, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
Meaning,
it's a universal action.
If you allow me to move you, which he told you he was going to do, you are in the right mind frame to be moved or to move yourself.
And you
did it.
And you were connected. Right. So
that is fascinating.
If there's a connection between the two beings,
right.
Who's to say?
Can the connection be made with Joe?
Right. And
yes.
People will watch these Godan tests, which is why people in our martial art, we really, you don't see a lot of them get put out there, because anybody could watch it and say oh, this is so hokey, and this is ridiculous. Right. Whatever. They heard the they heard the sword getting squeezed, or the person's their person's like pant leg moving or whatever. And like sometimes you do, you know, and sometimes you pass for that, you know. But for me, it had nothing to do about sound or hearing. It was all about the feel. And
fascinating.
I think that I think that there is a real connection there, and it's mind blowing.
I think there is too. As a matter of fact, I mean that is my belief. It's like subliminal messaging. The signal was there, right? It was given. Like if you're watching a 30 frame per second, you know, movie, and there is an inserted frame in there that is sending you a message. Your brain sees it, but you don't register it consciously. But the signal is there. And to me, it's the same thing, right? The signals are there to pick up, and you pick them up, and whether they register consciously or not. And there's, and pin.
I mean, and
stuff we come back to.
You were saying there's a connection there, so you'll watch people I've watched people take the Godan test since, and I'm like, think to yourself, like, why did he pass that guy? He was doing all kinds of crazy movements beforehand, before he actually did the swing. And it's like, but the only two people with that connection are the two people up there on the stage. So the person giving the test and the person taking the test are the only two that really know what happened. And if you ask anybody
even
about
though
their
people
Godan
were
test,
watching.
And you could ask anybody that's ever taken the Godan test, what was it like? And you'll hear 50 different stories.
And this is why I think a lot of people don't talk about the Godan test, because I think you're the first person that I've asked who's actually been willing to talk, and that's, I appreciate that very much. Thank you. But you've also given a good reason why other people don't, because it's something that's so personal about that connection, about what happened, that it's hard to express.
Yeah. And, you know, I've tried to prepare some of my students that have taken the Godan test.
You've had several.
And it's like, here's what I experienced. Let's try these few things to maybe simulate that a little bit.
Yeah, how do you train
you? But so in our martial art, I think one of the things that prepare you for it are there are techniques in the different Ruha, the traditions, where the attack is coming from behind. And I think that those techniques are specifically designed to get you to start to foster that sense of something's coming from behind, you know. And
to me, it seems like there is that awareness, that ability is there, but if it's untrained, it's not going to work. I mean, it's more to the point, though. I think, though, that people defeat themselves by thinking, I don't believe in this. I can't do it. And then you never will.
And that's the big thing. I think human beings, you know, especially with, you know, the way the world is now, very skeptical people are, and they're like they will.
Well, that's what you would call it, materialistic thinking.
So they're trained out of listening to that voice. I mean, when we were kids, we were told, like, if an adult tells you to do something, you better listen and do it. Like, you know, it takes a village to raise a child, right? So if the neighbor down the street, the father says, hey, get off my lawn, what are you doing? Like, you listen to them. But the problem is there are people in the world that have positions of authority that are bad. And so it's like you have to listen to your gut, not ignore that, right? No matter what you're taught, you should listen to your gut. I mean, I'll be driving to work and say, you know what? I'm going to take a right here instead of going straight today. And I just do it. I don't even, my wife will sometimes say, what are you doing? I said,
listening.
I just felt like I should go this way today. I don't know. I mean, does it matter? I don't know. Who knows?
It's intuition.
You may never know. Right.
Well, I call that intuition. And people that listen to their intuition will see the results of it. But folks that don't believe in it, it's not going to materialize. And just before you move into the next section, maybe I know you're driving.
Not quite done with this, but
okay. But you had mentioned the feeling of being stared at. Well, one of the writers that I love so much is Rupert Sheldrake, and he wrote a book about it called "The Feeling of Being Watched" or "Stared at from Behind," and there's plenty of laboratory scientific evidence to suggest that, beyond chance, people can detect when they're being watched or monitored. So to me, it's fact, and everything you're talking about is fascinating to me, because a warrior it would make them a successful warrior, wouldn't it?
Well, you have to. That's the point. And you have to study both
but it's not apparent to everybody that they just think it's just a bunch of forms and movements, and but there's so much more. The mental side is equal to the physical side.
And you have to study both sides of that. So if I need to sneak up on you, and I don't want you to feel me staring at you, I shouldn't be staring at you.
And
you know what I mean?
And what's funky is
diverted gaze.
There are so my training diverged from yours at a certain point, and I went to deal with some people who actually did go out in the real world and do crazy things. And while they'll have their doubts about something like the Godan test, where you're feeling that intention, they will openly talk about, well, you don't want to be thinking about how you have to knife this guy in the kidney as you go by. You have to start to hide your intentions, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
it's the Godan test.
Yeah. Two sides of the same coin here. Right. I mean, I know I've dealt with them enough. They'll be talking about true tells, true giveaways, physical giveaways, blah, blah, blah. But it always comes back to some kind of intent thing as well. And that you just brought that up.
To your mind.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, let's put John on the spot. John, what do you think? Have you experienced any, while you've been training or with anybody, have you experienced anything, either yourself or seen anything paranormal, as one would say? Or I'll just call it's actually normal.
I've had some odd experiences in different venues.
Okay.
And that will pull us off track here, but we can talk about it a little bit.
Give us the elevator speech.
To run down a couple of things. Like there are people that I've trained with, at a seminar setting, and I'm just like, well, I'm not coming back to this person again in this seminar. They're giving off bad energy, and I don't need that in my life right now. Usually, there's some kind of physical component to that, like they're being bullying.
Would be residual that we would take with you. Or
you never really thought about
near it.
I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be near it. Like I said,
Gotcha.
there's usually some kind of physical, like they're bullying me too much. They're taking too much pleasure in
hurting
the pain.
You maybe.
Yeah. It's different things at different times. So I can't really. So there and yes, it's not just this is a bad person energy or something. There's something else, but you just go, no, not that person. There have been instructors that I have dealt with, and over time, as you get to know them, you just go, I'm not that person.
Not clicking
right. I'm not going to go with that person.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain this succinctly, but so when I started my training, I was all about someday I'm going to take that Godan test.
Yeah.
And I diverged in my training and left Bujinkan, went in some other directions, and I was at a seminar with a group of people who are very focused on the reality of things, folks who had been out in the real world using this stuff, for God and country. And I actually had a moment. And again, in some ways, I can't explain it. There was a moment where I was dealing with the instructor, going through the exercise. He had established a very stress-filled exercise that we had to go through. And when I got to the other end of that exercise, any desire I had to take the Godan test was gone, because it had been satisfied in a weird sort of way. Like I could tell in that moment, my performance, the recognition from the instructor, it was just like, that was fantastic. He did really good. He was elated. I was elated.
Yeah.
The feeling was gone. I had satisfied whatever I needed to get out of that in that. And I was like, and I don't want to make that sound like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there
are a lot of ways to take the Godan test, right? The rattlesnake, right?
Yeah.
Or being moved.
Yeah.
Being allowed to be moved.
And I have been moved too.
Yeah.
And then there are some other things in some of this. There have been times like in meditative training where I've had some really wild experiences.
Okay. I asked Joe because on the show, John is typically the skeptic, and so he's bringing in like skeptic. Well, I don't think that's exactly true. So for the listeners, they'll be very interested to hear his take on this, especially since he's trained martial artist as well. So but anyway. Thanks, John.
You're welcome. I really didn't want to make this about me. I was very.
It's a show about ninjas.
I know. When I was working through the questions, I was like, I really want to make sure
I have a really good ninja story about John.
Oh no!
Yes.
When we were training,
let her rip.
One time at TriStar long ago, we were at a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seminar, and I don't know if you remember this, but a couple of the friends of the owners, their professor Barshard.
Yes.
Came down from Boston or New Hampshire, and he was running a seminar, and John and I were partnered up. And John's on the ground. I was in his guard, and I think I was on the ground and you were in my guard, and we were working on a choke from being on your back. So I start to get this choke on John that we're all working on, this cross choke at the lapel. Next thing I know, I feel what felt like maybe a knife in my ribs. And I said, "What are you doing? This is a BJJ seminar." He goes, "I'm a ninja, dude." Like he pulled out a training knife and was stabbing me in the ribs.
It sounds like cheating.
Well,
is that just straight out cheating?
There's no such thing as cheating.
There's no such thing as rules in a real life situation.
Well, I know that, but
my other instructors are smiling and nodding. Like, see, I
mean, so I think there's a lot to be said. Like ninja, we're known to not. There's no such thing as fighting like a man. It's like, well, do you want to fight to survive or do you want to fight to die?
Okay, so you train like you fight. Okay, that makes that. Wow. I've heard that rule before.
But so that was a fun. That's a memory that I have of us training together.
Pretty good. All right.
Well known for
this is slippery one.
Multiple knives on me. Yeah. Okay.
Always prepared. All right.
So before we move on from the Godan test, you were talking about how you had several students who had passed, and I know you had two recently. You were telling a little bit of how there were some things you can do in training, but did you give them any advice on the day of their test? Did they know it was coming, or did you do the same thing to them?
No, they knew it was coming. Okay. They had been preparing with me for a while and working on different higher level kata and our martial art and stuff. But their curriculum that I've designed for them at fourth dan or fourth degree, a lot of those techniques are the from behind the attack is coming type of a thing. And so then we also did some, like, I played the role of the, Dai Shihan giving the test, and they kneeled down in front of me and we tried to do the Godan test, and they were both very sensitive. I don't know if it's like a connection we have, because I've done this with other people. We do energy drills and things, and some people who are skeptic, they'll tell you, I didn't feel anything and all that. So I think there's something to be said about believing in it and being open to it. And they're both very open to it. You can't, I don't think you can train in our martial art as long as they have and not be open to it. It's hard to get past a certain level if you don't allow yourself to be open to certain things. But they were very sensitive. Like when I'd swing, like the week leading up to our last trip where they tested, I had one of them kneel down in front of me, and we did it like 3-4 times, and every single time right before I hit them on the head, they were moving. And I said, it's okay. I think my advice was relax. Don't fight anything. Don't, get tense. You just got to try to stay relaxed, which is easy to say and hard to do. And just let him move you. Right. And I'll be honest, like I feel like they did way better than me. I was kind of jealous.
That's my other question. Was,
yeah, but under your tutelage.
Yeah, were you more nervous watching them or taking your test?
I was more nervous taking my own test.
Okay. Honest answer.
But
Thank you.
I would love to say that I was nervous for them, but they actually volunteered to go first. So they were 1 and 2 in the test. They tested 5 people. And they did not move at all until that sword was almost on them. Wow. And they were out.
It's funny you mentioned that they volunteered to go first.
Yeah.
In the experience I was sharing about, I volunteered to go first, and he said, "Oh no, you're going last."
No, because you volunteered.
Well, I typically would volunteer to go first, and so he was ready at that point. He's like, "Oh no, you're going last." And I didn't quite go last, but he made me sweat it out.
That sounded like me in college. I took a self-defense course. I was a phys ed major at Towson, and you could take self-defense as a skill class or whatever. It was like 1 credit or whatever it was. But I had taken some martial arts, so like, oh, what the heck, I'll take this class. It could be fun, although it was like 8 to 9:30 in the morning. And the final exam was you go in one at a time, and he's got on what's called a red man suit.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's protected, and you go down into the basement of the Towson Center, which was the wrestling room. It was for the wrestling team, and it had mats.
The padded room.
And he had one light on, and all the other lights were off, and you stood in the light, and he attacked you 5 times.
Wow.
And everybody in my class is like, "Joe, you go first and tell us how it goes." And I was like, okay, because I'm not waiting around here an hour and a half waiting my turn. So I did go first, and he didn't have a problem with it. And he said, "You need to hit me harder." I was like, okay. All right. And I passed.
Yeah.
I did all right.
Awesome.
I had another experience like that, but that's a different time. Okay, so I think that's it for the Godan test. You guys, we've been at it a little while. Do you want to take a short break?
We can take a break if you want. Do you need a break?
Whatever you want.
Yeah, I need a break.
All right, can I take a break? All right, gang. Okay. We'll be right back. Well, John, Joe is a natural, very clearly.
Joe is so much of a natural, I'm thinking we should give him his own show. And I would be happy to talk ninjas and martial arts and fighting and...
I'll be your tech guy.
Weapons and all that stuff with him anytime.
Yeah.
So
he's right out here. So
we need to think about that.
Wander out here. Do a trial, do a pilot show.
Yeah,
I'm happy to record it.
Yeah, but we're not done with Joe yet.
No, I know.
We've got another episode out of him.
I know.
He was that entertaining.
Yeah. So, folks, we decided to split the interview. We have a lot to say to Joe, and we're going to continue next week. So, anything you wanted to say before we wrap?
Yeah, I figure we should. Since it's the beginning of the season, we should advertise the social media again. So we're out there on Facebook with Into the Unknown with Mike and John. Very easy to find. We have our own website, which is ITU Podcast. That's all one word, itupodcast.com.
Yeah.
We are also on Instagram.
Yeah.
And
there's some new. I've been working behind the scenes as I do. Some new locations where you can find us. If Castbox is your provider of choice, we're out there now. And we are on YouTube now.
Exciting. Just the audio though, right?
It's just the audio.
I mean, voice made for radio.
Yeah. But that opens the door to explorations we've talked about doing with video. We'll get to that.
I think that's a good idea.
The truth is, I didn't buy the Macintosh that I needed. It didn't cross my mind when I got this one, which is basically allows me on the internet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I got
that's
you.
okay.
Need some more equipment upgrades. We really need to monetize sooner rather than later. Then.
Well, it's just when I just spend the money.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So all right, folks, we will see you next week when we continue our discussion with Joe Offutt, the Ninja
Master.
See you next week.